Christopher Columbus, an ambitious and determined explorer, sought a faster route to Asia. He was driven by the desire to find a more efficient path for trade, one that would bring wealth and prestige. He believed he could sail west across the vast and uncharted Atlantic Ocean, a bold and daring idea for his time. This idea was radical at the time, challenging the conventional wisdom and sparking intense debates among scholars and navigators. Many thought the Earth was flat, a belief that was deeply ingrained in the minds of many during the medieval period. In 1492, after much persuasion and persistence, Columbus convinced King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of Spain to fund his ambitious voyage. They provided him with 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, each equipped for the perilous journey ahead. On August 3, 1492, Columbus set sail from Palos de la Frontera, Spain, embarking on a voyage that would change the course of history. The journey was long and arduous, with the ships battling rough seas and unpredictable weather. The crew faced numerous challenges, including violent storms, hunger, and disease. Morale was low, and the men grew increasingly restless. Some wanted to turn back, fearing they would never find land. Columbus, however, remained resolute and steadfast in his belief. He believed they would find land, urging his crew to stay hopeful and vigilant. He promised rewards to the first man to spot land, a promise that kept the crew motivated and their eyes fixed on the horizon. Why did Columbus risk everything for this voyage? What drove him to embark on such a perilous journey across uncharted waters? The answer lay in the lucrative spice trade, a market that promised immense wealth and power. Spices like pepper, cinnamon, and cloves were highly prized in Europe, not just for their flavor, but also for their preservative qualities and medicinal properties. These exotic spices came from the East Indies, which is modern-day Indonesia, a region rich in natural resources and coveted by European powers. The journey to obtain these spices, however, was long and dangerous, fraught with perilous seas and unpredictable weather. It involved traveling over land and sea, often through territories controlled by middlemen who inflated prices, making the spices even more expensive by the time they reached Europe. Columbus sought a direct sea route to the East Indies, bypassing these middlemen and reducing costs significantly. He believed that by sailing west he could find a faster and cheaper route to these valuable lands, a bold idea that challenged the conventional wisdom of his time. This new route, if successful, would bring immense wealth to Spain, elevating its status as a dominant global power. Columbus's quest for spices was driven by economic ambition and the promise of untold riches, a vision he passionately presented to the Spanish monarchy. It reflected Europe's growing desire for trade and exploration, a hunger for new markets and resources that would shape the course of history. This marked the beginning of a new era, an age of discovery that would forever change the world. The journey across the Atlantic was fraught with challenges. The open ocean was vast and unforgiving. The ships were small. The journey tested the limits of human endurance. Weeks turned into months. The crew grew restless. They faced storms that threatened to capsize their ships. Supplies dwindled. The fear of the unknown loomed large. Despite these hardships, Columbus pressed on. He was a skilled navigator. He used the stars to guide his way. His determination kept the expedition going. Jamaica. In 1494, during his second voyage, Columbus sighted land. It was the island of Jamaica. He had already landed on other Caribbean islands in 1492. Columbus named the island Santiago. He claimed it for Spain. He believed he had reached the East Indies. He called the native people Indians. The indigenous people of Jamaica were the Taino. They were welcoming to Columbus and his crew. They offered food and gifts. Section 5, First Encounters. The Taino were skilled farmers, fishermen, and artisans. They lived in villages ruled by chiefs. They were deeply connected to their natural environment. Columbus, however, saw them through the lens of European superiority. He described them as simple and childlike. He believed they could easily be converted to Christianity. Columbus's arrival marked a turning point in the history of Jamaica. It brought together two very different cultures. The consequences would be profound. Section 6, A World Transformed. Columbus's voyages had a profound impact on both Europe and the Americas. They opened up the Western Hemisphere to European exploration and colonization. The discovery of new lands and trade routes led to the Columbian Exchange. This was a massive exchange of plants, animals, diseases, and ideas between the Old World and New World. The Columbian Exchange had both positive and negative consequences. It brought new crops and livestock to Europe. It also led to the devastation of indigenous populations. Section 7. Columbus's controversial legacy. Christopher Columbus is a controversial figure in history. He is celebrated for his daring voyages and his role in connecting the world. However, he is also criticized for his role in the colonization of the Americas. Columbus's arrival in the Americas had a devastating impact on indigenous populations. Europeans brought diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza. These diseases wiped out entire communities. Columbus also initiated the transatlantic slave trade. He enslaved indigenous people. He forced them to work in mines and on plantations. Section 8. A new perspective. Today we recognize the complexities of Columbus's legacy. His voyages marked the beginning of a new era, but they also brought about significant challenges and changes for the indigenous populations. We acknowledge the suffering he inflicted upon indigenous populations. The arrival of Columbus and his men led to the displacement, mistreatment, and decimation of many native communities. We also understand the profound impact his voyages had on world history. These journeys opened up new trade routes and opportunities for exploration, forever changing the course of history. Columbus's voyages were a turning point in human history. They connected distant continents and cultures, leading to an exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies. They ushered in an era of globalization. This new era saw the beginning of global trade networks that would shape economies and societies for centuries to come. They also led to the exploitation and oppression of indigenous peoples. The colonization that followed Columbus's voyages brought about significant suffering and loss for native populations. As we commemorate Columbus's voyages, we must remember both the good and the bad. It is important to honor the achievements while also acknowledging the darker aspects of this history. We must learn from the past. By understanding the full scope of history, we can better appreciate the complexities and work towards a more informed perspective. We must work towards a more just and equitable future for all. By recognizing the mistakes of the past, we can strive to create a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect.